My name is Harald. Today I'm going to talk about performance at the very highest level as a human, what we call peak performance. And that is something that is connected to higher consciousness, or what we call a peak experience. So here is Thomas Alsgaard, a cross-country skier with 11 gold medals in Olympic Games and World Championships. And this is his experience at Lillehammer in 1994 when he won the 3-kilometer cross-country race with almost a minute margin, which is extraordinary. He said, "When everything is at the very highest level, then I feel invincible. The uphills are not long enough nor steep enough. Extremely good sensation." Actually, what happened when he woke up on the morning that day, he felt that something was wrong. He had experience that he had never had before. He was feeling so exhilarated and so happy, and he wondered, as I said, if something was wrong, but as it turned out, everything was perfect. And when he was racing, he could still, his mental capacity was greatly expanded. He thinks he expanded his mental capacity by a factor of 15 to 20. And he could still remember today what people were talking about, the spectators standing next to the track, what they were talking about when he was passing by, and what color of the cap they had. So this was a peak experience. This was an experience of the highest levels of human development. And we have a tremendous potential in this. These peak experiences have, by Abraham Maslow, the famous psychologist, been called the most happy and fulfilling moments in life. And it turns out that almost everybody have at least one such experience in life. This is what we actually found in our research. So we had, looking at the world-class brain, the brain underlying world-class performance, underlying the peak experiences. And I also going to be talking about research on the Transcendental Meditation technique, TM, because this, according to extensive research, is the most effective technique we know of for developing higher mind-brain development, for developing higher consciousness. So we have developed a unified theory of performance. We think there are 4 dimensions, basic dimensions underlying high performance. First one is individual psychology. That's your level of intelligence, your level of moral development, your level of empathy, for instance, those basic developments of your mind. And then we have the level of brain functioning which underlies the individual psychology. So it means people with a higher psychological development have a more refined, more developed, more integrated brain. And then we have frequency of peak experiences, like the one I just talked to you about for Alsgaard. And these also have experience, also have a very special, more developed level of brain functioning. We can also say the style of brain functioning. I will be coming back to that a little bit later. So these 3 dimensions are the performance mind-brain development. And then we are also operating in a social context, and that has an effect on our performance. For instance, in soccer, it is known that home wins are much more common than away wins. Why is that? It's because you have a collective consciousness of your supporters at home. There are a lot of them, and they are supporting your performance. So together, these three individual dimensions and the social context of performance, they constitute the unified theory of performance underlying any performance, we think, whether it is sports, music, studies, being a doctor or a nurse. In any profession, we think this is the basic underlying factor. So if we consider one of the dimensions underlying performance, psychological development, then there is this higher development is a progressive unfoldment of sense of self and worldview. So the lowest range is called egocentric or pre-conventional. That's normally found in children. You are only concerned, more or less, only concerned with your own ego interest, satisfying your own ego. So you are very egocentric. And also in adults, we find some people at that level, about 10%. And that's actually where you find a lot of criminals. They are not thinking of anybody else. They are just thinking of satisfying their own needs. And then if we want move on to a higher level, we get the sociocentric, the conventional. That is about 80%. Then you are following the norms of society, which means that if the norms of society are socially acceptable, then it works quite well. But if the norms of society are not satisfactory, then you are making problems for yourself and for society. So if where you live it's there is a lot of crime, for instance, then it's kind of natural that you become a criminal. Or if it's accepted that to have a war against your neighbor, then you accept that the war is something which is acceptable, which of course it's terrible, very, very sad. The next level is the world-centric or post-conventional, and that is about 10% of adult population today. Then you are concerned with the whole world when you make an action. Is this good for the world? And of course, in terms of sustainability, which is becoming, fortunately, a more and more hot subject these days, you need to be world-centric. And they are post-conventional, so they don't, they listen to others, but they primarily make the decisions going inside themselves, feeling, is this the right thing to do? Is this the wrong thing to do? So they are very self-managing, you can say, self-managing. They are managing their own life irrespective of what other people might think, what opinions other people have. So these are very independent thinkers. And this is the level we need to establish a sustainable world. We need many more people on this level. And then there is even a higher level, ego transcendence, the peak experience, going beyond even your deepest individuality to a universal level. And that, of course, is what Thomas Alsgaard, in the quote I just gave you, he must have had an ego transcendent or a peak experience when he was performing on this very high level. And he said to me that he had about 9 days, he called them super days, where in his career where he was in this state, this peak experience state for the whole day, and he was really performing on an extraordinarily high level. So, how to develop your mind and brain? This becomes a very important question. In my opinion, it's the by far most important question when we are thinking sustainability. We have, if we want to have a sustainable world, and that of course we all want, we have to develop the human potential in our society. So what means are there to develop mind and brain? Well, the first one is music. That is very good for developing and refining your brain, for instance. And we found in our studies, we found at the world, the professional musicians were far the most developed of all the people we examined. In fact, the control person's average performance in music scored higher on mind-brain development than the world-class athletes. So it's interesting. Music is a very fundamental thing, and it is sad that it has, looking back from when I was a young boy, we had music at school, and today it seems it's almost absent or very rare. So they have really taken away from education this very important aspect of refining your mind and brain through music. Another factor is exercise, and that is also very important for developing your mind and brain. And again, it seems that modern education has reduced substantially the amount of exercise that the students have in class. And this, I think, is extremely sad that they have. I was reading Plato. He suggested that until we are 10 years old, the only thing we should do is to play and have physical exercise. And in modern school, even at the lowest ages, is very little exercise now. Enough sleep, very important. A new study came out in Norway recently showing that about 80% of people at high school had too little sleep. And the reason was screen time. They were using so much time on the screen and that they hadn't enough sleep. And that has very negative effects on, for instance, your emotional and development. Healthy diet is also very important. I won't go into detail. And a good social network is important. But the most important aspect or factor or procedure for developing your mind and brain, now we are getting into that. That is meditation and relaxation techniques. And there are many meditation and relaxation techniques on the market today, but extensive research shows that the Transcendental Meditation, also known as TM, has the largest, by far, individual benefits in terms of refining, developing both your mind and your brain. And the interesting thing is that groups of people who are practicing the TM and the advanced programs known as TM City have positive effects on society. So it's, according to research, it seems that this technique here develops all the 4 dimensions of the unified theory of performance. And as far as I know, it is the only meditation that develops the collective consciousness of society. So let's look again at action during a peak experience, the action during higher consciousness, higher human development. And this is Hege Riise. She was an Olympic, world and European soccer champion. And she's saying, I always am where the ball falls down, the right place at the right time. A pass comes that I know will fall down on my foot, and I shoot a volley and score. This is an example of what we call luck, or we also can say support of nature. And for instance, going back to Abraham Maslow, he also found that people who were self-actualized, who had a higher level of mind and brain development, had more luck. So it seems to be some connection there, which is very interesting. So let's look at the research we did on world-class performers. We considered world-class athletes, world-class professional musicians, classical musicians, world-class managers, and we measured, for instance, the brain and looked at how integrated the brain is. Now, what is brain integration? It consists of three factors. One is coherence, and these lines are, these dots are where we measure the EEG, electroencephalography. You get like a shower cap on your head, and then there are many holes, and in those holes you put electrodes to measure the electrical activity of the brain surface. And this is looking at coherence, and these are the points, the same point, the measuring points. And when there is a line between 2 points, it means that the brain waves in those 2 points are at least 70% in step with each other, in synchrony. And the thicker the line is, the more synchrony there is. So it could be up to 100%, meaning they were perfectly in tune or in line with each other. And so this synchrony, what does it mean? Well, you see, different parts of the brain have different responsibilities. And when there is coherence, it indicates that those different parts of the brain are communicating and collaborating in a good way. It's like an organization. If people in an organization, the sales, the marketing, the accounting, the production, if they are communicating and coordinating in a good way, then the whole organization will, of course, be performing on a high level. Excuse me. Another thing we looked at is the alpha-1 brain waves. They are from 8 to 10 cycles per second, and they are characterizing that the brain is relaxed and alert at the same time. And in any profession, if you want to perform on a high level, you have to be relaxed and alert at the same time. So this was another aspect. And then we looked at the efficiency of the brain. Does it mobilize when that is the best thing to do? And does it relax when that is the best thing to do? And that's what we found, that the world-class performer were mobilizing the brain when that was the optimal thing to do, and relaxing the brain when that was the optimal thing to do. So we put these together into what we call the brain integration scale. And here is an example of a control athlete and a world-class athlete, and then we are looking at the coherence in the brain. You remember one of the three measures. And we see a control athlete, he has relatively little coherence in the brain, whereas the world-class athlete has a lot of lines, meaning that the coherence in his brain is on a high level. So we developed a new measure, we call it the perform measure assessment, and that is a holistic measure of your performance level, performance potential in a very fundamental way. One is moral development, which is a level of your mental development, one aspect of it. The other is the frequency of peak experiences, these most fulfilling and happy moments of life. And the third is the brain integration. And then we found that the world-class performers scored almost twice as high as the controls on this measure of mind-brain development in this unified theory of performance. So let's look now at how to develop this high mind-brain development, and let us look more detail into that. And then we'll look at different types of meditations. There are basically three fundamental types of meditation. One is focus attention, where you are voluntarily focusing the attention on a chosen object. And this is like Zen meditation from Japan. Some of you might have heard about that. And what characterizes that kind of meditation is gamma brain waves, 30 to 50 cycles per second or hertz, which means that in this meditation your mind is kept on a very active level, more or less the level that we are now. I'm at that level talking to you, and you are at that level listening to me. And then we have what we call open monitoring, and that is a non-reactive monitoring of the content of experience from moment to moment. And the most common technique here is what we call mindfulness. And this is characterized by theta 2 brain waves, 6 to 8 hertz per cycles per minute. And that means that you have the attention inward. You are observing, monitoring some internal processes. It could be your thoughts or your feelings or your body functioning, and you are just observing it. You are not interfering. And then the third type of meditation is what we call automatic transcending. Transcends the step of the meditation practice, leading to transcendental consciousness, the most fundamental level of the mind. And that is what we call alpha 1 brain waves, 8 to 10 cycles per second. So what we found is that the world-class performers are characterized by, as I said, high brain integration, and that is this type of alpha, includes this type of alpha 1 brain activity being dominating, 8 to 10 cycles per second. So the conclusion therefore is that as far as we know, there are no other common available techniques today that are available globally that than TM that produces these alpha 1 brain waves. So let's look at the benefits of TM. There are over 600 research projects now all over the world finding benefits from this technique. It develops an integrated brain. In fact, when we were looking at the world-class performers, we just we used the qualities that we know develop with TM to see if the world-class performers had more of these than the controls, and we found that they had, as I said, almost twice as much of these qualities, the world-class performers, compared to the average performing control persons. So this, to develop the brain, is very fundamental to higher performance in any profession, in any human activity. Then it leads to mental development. It develops your sense of reality. For instance, it develops what we call ego development. And the one study looked at students from 4 universities. One university where TM was part of the curriculum, it's called Marisha International University in the USA, where my colleague, Professor Fred Travis, is a professor. And then we looked at 3 other students from 3 other universities in the USA. And at the beginning, there were 1% self-actualization in the control students. That is the highest level of mental development from modern psychology is Abraham Maslow, who introduced that term. So the control students from 3 other universities were 1% at that level of ego-integrated or self-actualization at the beginning of study, which is the norm today in society actually. And then after 10 years it was still 1% of the 3 students from the 3 control universities were at that level. But at the students at MIU, they started off with 8% at the ego-integrated stage, and they ended up with 38% at the end of the 10-year experimental period. This technique also develops health. A major study in the USA, paid for by the National Institute of Health, which actually almost $4 million, looked at people, compared people who were practicing TM with a non-TM matched. It was a randomized study, and after a period of about 5 years, the heart problems of the people doing TM was 66% lower than in the control subjects. Okay, and then improved relations. There is research showing that you have better relations to co-workers or to your family, and improve individual performance. Research shows that, for instance, improved creativity and improved IQ and improved work performance, also research. So this is interesting in conclusion, that this technique develops the mind-brain features of the high performers. And just to substantiate that, this study is actually, this graph shows several studies brought together. Here we have the average performers in our studies, and these are people who have done TM for 7 years. These are the world-class performers who are substantially higher than average performers, and these are people who is doing a TM for 24 years, and they have almost twice the level of brain integration of the world-class performers. So let's compare then TM with other techniques, and let's look first at reducing anxiety. This is a meta-analysis at Stanford University. They considered 140 studies, so it is a major scientific investigation. And we see that the TM technique, in terms of reducing anxiety, is more than twice as effective as the other methods. The next best is placebo, where you are giving somebody a pill saying that it will help him or her with anxiety, but it's just a sugar tablet. And then if you look at other relaxation, it's less than half. The relaxation response, other meditation, we can see they are getting less and less. And then the least one is concentration, which actually increases anxiety. Okay, and then let's look at another mindfulness and other meditation comparing to TM, and looking at decreasing negative emotions. And this is the study done in Germany by Siddelmeier and his colleagues, and it considered 21 studies, altogether 1,134 subjects, and we find that TM is 3 times as effective as mindfulness and twice as effective as other meditations in reducing negative emotions. So, summarizing then, higher mind-brain development is the key to higher performance in all professions and activities. This we have established in our research, and this of course has also been established in many other research projects, looking mainly on IQ, for instance, but there are researches involving a wide range of mental factors, for instance. And then TM meditation is more effective in mind-brain development than other techniques. And TM is the only technique that develops all the 4 dimensions of the unified performance theory. And remember, that also included the collective consciousness where the performance is taking place. And as far as we know, TM is the only technique that develops collective consciousness. So this shows you that there are no practical ways to develop what is needed to perform on a higher level and to act in a more socially responsible way. So I would finish by claiming that we really need to develop mind and brain of the people. That's the only way, I think, that we can solve the sustainable problem, make the world happy and peaceful and sustainable. Thank you very much.